China is making a bold play to pull Australia deeper into its tech and trade battle with the US, eyeing Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's upcoming visit as a chance to expand their free trade deal into artificial intelligence and the digital economy. With Trump's potential return reshaping the alliances there, Beijing is pitching closer ties as a way for Australia to boost productivity and to break out of its economic slump, even as Xi Jinping and Anthony Albanese carefully negotiate tensions after years of diplomatic frost between the two nations. For more, we are joined by Professor Chris Berg from RMIT. Good to see you. How is China positioning itself in this tech trade war with the US?
What an extraordinary symbol of the complex nature of geopolitics around technology at the moment. Obviously, the United States and China are going right at each other. The US is trying to build up its own advanced manufacturing. It's trying to contest the AI high ground with China at the moment, and Australia is now being seen as one of the battlegrounds. The Chinese government would like to partner with Australia, pulling us away from the United States and using us as a space for its own technological ambitions as well. It's amazing to see how Australia is going to and is becoming really at the center ground of this grand geopolitical contest.
At a time where Australia is still obviously waiting for some sort of certainty around AUKUS, the huge multi-billion dollar submarine project that Donald Trump has pushed into a review as well. Obviously, Australia has been in a pretty difficult situation where it needs the trade ties with China, but needs the security pact with the United States. How do you think Australia is playing it at the moment? And Anthony Albanese heading to China for a week, it's quite a long time.
I don't think there's a way to play this well, but AUKUS is not just about submarines. In fact, AUKUS has a second chapter, and that second chapter is all about advanced technology. So while we have this relationship with the United States through the AUKUS pact, as well as, of course, our historical relationship, that is itself a technology deal. Now, to add to the complexity, the United States government, the Trump administration, is rethinking whether it likes the AUKUS pact at all. So you can see how China sees these complexities, sees a very complicated relationship we have with the United States at the moment as an opportunity to try to pull Australia more into the Chinese camp as well. So I think this is hard because I think Albanese is facing some really difficult choices. I'm a strong supporter of the US alliance, but the Trump administration is making it very, very hard for the Albanese government not to listen carefully to what the Chinese government has to say.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? We go back, well, 11 years ago, and Xi Jinping is speaking in the Australian Parliament House. Tony Abbott's Prime Minister at the time. Things then sailed downhill, ends up with a trade war between China and Australia, with tariffs put on Australian red wine and a lot of different items as well. Then we fast forward and the United States is now placing tariffs on Australia, on steel as well. And you wonder where Australia can, I guess, pick its friends.
Yeah, that historical perspective is really important too, because we should remember that there's been a long-running concern in Australia, in Parliament particularly, about Chinese technology. So the Gillard government, even before the Abbott government, the Gillard government prevented the tech giant Huawei from providing equipment for the national broadband network. There's been preventions from Huawei forbidding for the 5G network. There's been cyber pacts between China and Australia, but at the same time, there's been real concerns that the Chinese government or Chinese allied organizations have been doing prying or have been involved in hacking incidents. We've banned, or the Australian Parliament has banned TikTok on parliamentary phones. The Australian security and cybersecurity agencies are very, very concerned about Chinese cyber espionage and Chinese involvement in the technology industry in Australia. I would be surprised if anything Albanese did this week would reverse that concern.
So what is it that we will see, do you think, when it comes to technology and China and Australia here as well? You mentioned Huawei, obviously the 5G rollout. The UK were going to go ahead with it despite Australia pushing against it. And the US eventually said to all of its Five Eyes partners, as we know, you cannot use Huawei because they're spying, essentially. Do you think that Huawei will be back on the table with Anthony Albanese? Do you think that's what the Chinese have to offer?
I think the Chinese government would like that to be the case, but I don't think it will be. I think the concerns about cybersecurity are so severe and so long-standing in Australia's security community and in the Australian government more generally that there's very little that the Albanese could do in China, and certainly very little the Chinese government could do to assuage those concerns. I think that there will be some general statements about we're going to get a little bit closer to the Chinese, but more generally, I think we're going to stick with the United States alliance, even if it is in an interesting position at the moment.
So what does Anthony Albanese want from China?
I think he wants the re-establishment or the continued re-establishment of the usual trade relationship that we had prior to all the COVID tariffs. I think we do need to have a secure and friendly bilateral trade relationship with China. We provide them a great deal of commodities. We get a great deal of consumer goods in return, of course, a lot of money as well. I think that's important. That should remain. But I don't think that the Albanese government is going to come back with a grand new digital free trade deal. I don't think that's on the table, and I don't think many Australians would support it.
All right, Chris Berg there, Professor Chris Berg from RMIT. Appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thank you so much.